This is the Meltdown 2021 version with your host, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back to the Meltdown. I'm Vince Thompson, founder, chairman, CEO of Melt, with my partner in crime, Jake Crane of the J-Boy Show, blowing up the internet. We'll unpack that this week, but you can follow us at Vinny Inc. on social media or at the J-Boy Show on social media, and we're going to unpack my favorite topic. The SEC, college football, has 10 seasons, Jake, not one. What are they? Fall practice, Labor Day kickoff, rivalry week, say that 10 times fast, rivalry week, conference championships, the bowl season, the Natty, recruiting, early signing, CFP, National Signing Day, spring ball, spring games, and the SEC leading the way. Full stadiums this fall. Everybody else follows. But fall practice, I mean, you know, Jay, let's talk about this. I don't call you a former coach. You're a coach that now happens to have a podcast. One of the silver linings of COVID, but literally, college football fans, we talk about this stuff year round.
Oh, without a doubt. And Vince, it's always an honor to join you. It's one of my favorite things to do. And you know, it's unbelievable the following, because we talk about recruiting and that stuff, but when you do break it down into the 10 seasons, as you say, it's true, because it's never ending. It's a revolving door, and it's something, you know, that I know brands like and sponsors like, that it's always going to be talked about and true. It's basically, you know, about a religion, about as close as you can get to a religious following, and it's something that is only going to grow, and with what's coming down the pipe, it's only going to keep getting bigger.
Well, what Greg Sankey intuitively knew is that so goes the SEC, so goes college football. He also knew in the southern region, it was really a matter of pride as well.
Yeah.
And to his credit, and not others, he played the long game. You know, everybody was in August saying, well, we're not going to play. And he said, well, why do we need to make this decision this early? Let's gather the facts. Let's talk to the experts. And, you know, hey, was it perfect? No. But, you know, really gave us all something to look forward to on those Saturdays, and then obviously the NFL on Sundays. And we talk about this a lot, and we're going to, you know, I call it fanthology, or your tribe. Like, I went to Auburn, and so my fondest memories were at Auburn. My best friends in the world were at Auburn. It takes you back to a more quote-unquote innocent time. And I was able to witness live, Bo over the top, broke our 9-year winning streak, actually went on the field and helped tear the goalpost down. A little-known fact. And that sucker's heavy.
Yeah.
I don't know if they are now, but I guess they are because the doinks and everything. But that's why we're so bullish on the long-term future of college football, is that it's evergreen, it's emotional, it's multi-generational, and as we say, the old joke, better not plan a wedding in the fall in the South, other than my dear friends Darby Lou and David did.
Yeah.
But it happened to be an off week for Michigan and Alabama. But, you know, it's crazy now, too, how just even the little things, strength and conditioning. Think of the old days. Okay, they're in the weight room. But now, like, Scott Cochran became an icon, the former Alabama strength coach, now at the University of Georgia, and the sophistication of this, and with the access to information. I mean, we start talking about this, but everybody really gets excited right around July, around SEC Media Days, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And you bring up Greg Sankey, I think, and I'm going to keep saying this, and I think you agree with me, and our audience agrees. He was one of the only guys that could see the ocean through the trees and understood that, you know, instead of running down the hill and making a hasty decision, let's walk down there and make the right decision. And when you're the head of the most powerful conference, the moneymaker, the revenue driver of college football, to have that sort of wherewithal, I think is just, you know, kudos to him. But Vince, you're exactly right. When you look at the timing and just the build-up, and especially the pent-up demand that is going to happen this year, which is, to me, it's a volcano that's just been rising ever since we were told, and it's about to burst. And it really starts to feel real around SEC Media Day. You know, you go through spring practice and you go to the 8A game, and that's great.
Right.
But everybody's, even the coaches, I'm going to be honest with you, they're trying to get through the 8A game without guys getting hurt, because the most important part of spring is not the 8A game. It's almost like the Senior Bowl. The game's really not the most important part. It's the practices, it's the evaluation, it's understanding your personnel. But from a fan standpoint, when you're able to see those coaches, and I'm speaking about SEC Media Day, which we will be at, when you're speaking to these coaches, now they know their team. Because the team is formed during the spring, during the summer, and by fall camp, if you're not ready to go, if you're having to reinstall base stuff,
the bus is
already left. And I'm not talking about, the young guys got to be there during the summer, and we have early graduate stuff now, but it really starts to feel real. And this SEC Media Day is going to be the wildest ever because of the pent-up demand. But you're exactly right. It's understanding that, hey guys, wait a minute, we're in July. What comes after July? August. And what do we get the first week of September? You get the games.
Hey, how packed are these stadiums going to be? You got Alabama over here in Miami. Is it UGA's year? How does Clemson do in a post-Trevor era? Obviously, they're loaded as well. But can you just imagine, and I guess we're going to have to pick where we're going to go, but can you imagine the electricity?
Oh, it's going to be, and we've said this, and again, you've been out front of this. It is going to be an absolute I just think, and you know what? I almost wish that the biggest games at the beginning of the year could be played at a home stadium.
I agree with that.
Of one of these teams,
I agree
because
with that.
It is going to be like somebody shot this year out of a cannon. The noise will be – the ground will shake in more places this fall than it's ever shook before. If you're a seismologist, you're going to have to put in more work than you've ever put in before. And you know what? It's great. And I do want to say this, Vince. I hope just before that ball's kicked out, you're going to have people crying when teams run out of the tunnel.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's that emotional connection. I just hope for at least 10, 15 seconds, whether you're there by yourself, whether you're there with your family, you just take a second when you get in that stadium, which is going to be packed. It's going to be packed.
It's going to be wild.
That we all just take a deep breath and realize how amazing this is, how much of a way of life this is, and how we should never, ever, ever, ever take that experience for granted.
Well, you talk about the rivalries. I mean, it's, and even people that, intermarry within Auburn and Alabama. And, some of the, obviously Florida and Georgia, largest outdoor cocktail party in the world. I mean, you get to that rivalry week. It's in October, those beautiful crisp autumn days. You're out there tailgating with your friends. And I think what you just hit on the point is that it all reminded us, how much it really did matter. Mm-hmm. And how much we missed it, and how, we're going to talk about this in just a little bit, but how important these kids are to the game, and how this is now, emerging where they're going to get a little bit more of their fair share. Yeah. Obviously, with name, image, in likeness, but that the rivalry week, and even if you don't go to the stadiums, the fact that, that I look forward every Saturday, I'm like, hey, what am I going to cook? Who's coming over? Am I going to put some friendly wagers on the game? Those types of things. But that's a special week. And then I was at the first SEC championship, Legion Field, 1992, and it was really cold. And I actually said to myself then, I'm like, I don't think this game will stay in Birmingham that long. Legion Field is, the ghost of Legion Field, the Gray Lady. But Commissioner Kramer, the idea was sort of ruminated with Harvey Schiller, who went on to be president of Turner Sports and the Yes Network and the Olympics and retired Air Force colonel. But then ultimately, Roy Kramer, and then it moved to Atlanta. But the SEC championship, I think, sort of started the dominoes into all the other conference championships, which led to the BCS, which led to the college football playoff. I mean, the SEC really is probably the I call it the seventh NFL conference.
Yeah, well, I mean, just look at the revenue. I mean, it really is the straw that stirs the drink. And if you look around the NFL and you look at a lot of the teams that are having success, if you go look on that roster, there's a lot of SEC players on there. A lot of players from the SEC West. You know, I joke about the Super Bowl this year. Watching Tyrann Mathieu hit Leonard Fournette was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. You know, 2 LSU guys.
Crazy.
You look at Devin White, LSU guy, just go down the roster. But it really has become a monster. And the SEC has always had the most passionate fan bases. It's a way of life, like I've mentioned. But now when you add the capability to bring in the revenue, the decision-making that's why it's so important. And again, Greg Sankey's not here, whatever. But it's so important to have a guy leading the conference that understands what's going on. And when you have this stuff coming down the pipe, the NIL and all that stuff that we're talking about, you look at the precedent that Greg Sankey has set when it comes down to making a decision that matters for the most powerful, the Hulk of the conferences. And really,
Right.
if you look at any college sport, SEC football is the dominant one.
Yep.
It's not basketball, it's not baseball,
Right.
and it's very conference specific to the SEC. They are the monster. And it's amazing to me because, you know, like you, I think of the future and you look at ways that it's going to branch out. It's just absolutely amazing what they've been able to do. They have to keep harnessing that. You know, we say it all the time, keep blocking and tackling, no
Right.
pun intended, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Well, I think you're right. And, I mean, you know, obviously we've talked about it a lot. Disney has given us 7 billion reasons that the SEC, you know, is here to stay. And bowl season, and I've said this, you know, I really used to love the bowls, particularly when I was younger, and I went to them as an Auburn fan and an Auburn student. But I've said, and it's going to be interesting to see post-COVID where the future of bowls go. So 42 bowls, majority of them owned by ESPN to create content and shelf space. Mm-hmm. You know, I think, you know, Herb Street was being a little hypocritical today that, the luster of the bowls have fallen off. And I can't understand why kids are not, they want to opt out. But a couple things. One, I'm not sure that you would consider the Poulon Weed Eater Bowl in Shreveport a reward. Mm-hmm. Going to Nashville, yeah, we produced the bowl in the Bahamas, the New Mexico Bowl, Albuquerque. It's really cold. Now the expense and the cost, the fans don't go, and Herbie's getting paid to be at that bowl. So my opinion is that, you know, hey, these kids ought to be compensated as well. But I don't think, and you may not agree with me, but I don't think that it's going to hurt if there's a shrinkage or consolidation of the bowls. And there's a lot of other considerations for these kids now. And if we wanted to add another season to college football, prepping for the Senior Bowl, prepping for the combine, prepping for the draft, the threat of injury. I mean, there's a lot of factors going in now, right?
No, there is. Well, perception has changed, and really the players have smartened up. They've realized that, you know, again, you talk about some of these bowls that are kind of outliers, and I agree. You know, you look at, I just think it is hypocritical. It's funny to sit here and say, well, they've lost a list and all this, but I'm going to take a paycheck from them and talk about them, and my space is driven toward the end of the year by that. And I think one way, Vince, that there could be a compromise, and I talked about this on our first Prove Me Wrong segment that we're going to be releasing soon, is expanding the playoff to 8 teams.
Right.
And what that does to me, and I don't want to get too far into it, is number one, if you're a team that has a chance to make a playoff, and let's say you're LSU, and you're 7-2. Well, this year when LSU started looking downhill and they realized they weren't going to make the playoff for the SEC championship, what'd you see? Guys start opting out. Well, I'm done, this, that, and the other. Well, if you still have a chance to get to that SEC championship game and win it and get that automatic bid, or be one of the 2 at-large teams that gets in there, you're going to have guys that don't opt out. You can put 4 more bowls in that are meaningful.
Right.
But there has to be a way, Vince. And there's multiple ways to slice it, and you're exactly right saying that there has to be an incentive outside of you get an Xbox for a guy that's about to be offered, you know, millions of dollars if he doesn't get hurt. Because I think about it, if it's my kid, that's the way, and I don't have kids, I'm not going to pretend to, but
100%.
If I had a kid that was a top 2-3 round pick, or had a chance if we went and ran a certain 40 at the combine to go from a third, which happens every year, go from a 3rd round pick to a late 1st round pick, and we're playing, you know, Boise State in the hey, what's up, we're bored bowl.
With respect to Boise State.
With Boise State. Again, I've got no problem
And the
with
famous
Boise
Idaho
State.
Potato Bowl.
That's exactly right. They're still chasing that truck around there somewhere. But when you give them an incentive or something, and I think you can blend that in with what we're talking about with NIL, then you can have guys play. But, Vince, I think you're exactly right. We have to understand that Kirk Herbstreit, while he did play, is not going out there and throwing a pass. He's not going to get hit once during the game. I'm not. You're not. The camera guy, maybe, depending on where he is, but you sign up for that if you're in the end zone.
Right.
But, again, there has to be a coalescing. There has to be a compromise, and I think you're right on the point.
So you think it's a matter of time before they expand to 8 teams?
I think it's going to happen really soon.
You do?
And the only thing that scares me is that I know it always comes down to the bottom line. That's what it comes down to, the money that's made. And if they go to 8.
When they say it ain't about the money, it's about the money.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But when they go to 8, they're going to double those games. And I go into on the segment I mentioned before of how to do that. But it has to stop at 8 because what's going to happen is they're going to say, okay, let's look at the ad. We just doubled our ad revenue
100%,
in the playoff. And they
100%.
said, well, why not make it 16 or why not make it 24? That's
right.
what you've got to watch out because college basketball is not college football at all.
No.
So I think 8 teams, I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen fast. And I just hope we realize that once we get something good, you get that one great Christmas present under the tree that you open and you just love, then you expect all the other presents to be just as good. That's just not how it works.
Well, and also, again, I'm going to come back to this over and over. Let's don't forget about the kids in this process.
100%.
I mean, they do have school, they do have study, and they try to have lives. They've got the risk of injury. To your point, it's not basketball. There's 50, 60, 70, 80 players. You got to move around. I mean, so I think that I do agree with you. It is going to expand. I think it's going to be a really, really good thing. I do like. I also like the opportunity, like, had it been 8 this year, like a team like Cincinnati coming from somewhere and or nowhere, and UCF and that to me is a reward.
It is.
Going to the the Weed Eater Bowl may or may not be that reward now, because to your point, the expectations. I want you to explain this recruiting phenomenon. Why are we obsessed with recruiting?
Well, to me, if you look at it, recruiting is starting to become more important than the games. Because, number one, I think it brings the fans closer to being able to mold the team they love or have an idea of, oh, well, we signed the number 8 class. We've got this kid. We've got that kid. It's great water cooler talking that, but it gives you a sense of what's coming down the pipe. And really, it's a judgment on the coaches that are recruiting these guys. And when you're able to follow these guys and you watch the high school tape and you understand, like, hey, this kid's from, Palm Beach, whatever, Palm Gardens, Florida. He's a 4-star. He just committed to our team it's a win. It's competing when the season is not live. Because, again, recruiting during the season and all that stuff, it's followed. But in the off season, when you start getting close to signing day, there are no games. There's no game. So how do you get that competitive? How do you feed that competitive spirit? Auburn versus Alabama or Texas A&M versus Arkansas. It's like, ha, we got the 5-star. Our coaching staff was smarter and better than your coaching staff, or this, that, and the other. It's another way to compete. It's another way to almost predict the future. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think a lot of people that wager are really starting to pay attention to recruiting, because if I know we've got the number 1 dual threat quarterback and our quarterback was a junior that just left for the draft, well, here we go, baby. We're reloading with another one. And let's say that, you're a team that went 8-4 the year before. Now you got this Cam Newton type guy coming in, and you're still a, plus 2,500 underdog or plus 25,000 underdog to win the national championship. Well, why would I not put $30 on that? That kid may come in and burst on this. We've seen it with Joe Burrow. We've seen it with Cam Newton. We've seen it with Mac Jones, who didn't come out of nowhere but waited his turn.
No, Joe Burrow is a perfect example. But 2 or 3 things. Pad Dye used to say, they say, well, give us a summary of your recruiting class. He goes, see me in 4 years.
That's exactly right.
So I still love the old school throwback.
Yeah.
God rest his soul, rest in peace. But how will NIL impact recruiting? We know this kicks off July the 1st in Florida this year, and Dan Mullins talked about it. How's this going to impact it?
I think it already has. You look at schools, and this is happening already. Schools are going to have to start adding curriculum The
I'm
schools that can.
I'm a big advocate of that.
That's right. You have schools that are going to open up a shoe branding wing. I mean, you're going to be able to major in shoe branding, and that may be the difference in you getting that 5. I had Terrence Love on the show the other day.
Right.
The kid told me he decided, and he's a 2023 kid, very smart, very smart.
Oh, no, these kids are
has
sophisticated.
A Stanford offer, Duke
all
offer,
this stuff.
all type of stuff. That's exactly right. And he was smart enough to realize, hey, I've already decided my major. It's marketing and branding.
Boom.
Because I'm going to be my own businessman. I want to understand that when I'm sitting across the table from somebody, yes, I have an attorney there. Yes, I have an agent. But what you're seeing is schools now, it's a pitch. I always joke. If you ever played the NCAA football game, there was always during the recruiting and the dynasty mode, you'd have the pitch, campus lifestyle, program prestige. Well, you better offer NIL, and you better have a plan when you sit down in front of that mom and daddy, and they say, well, my 5-star son wants to major in marketing. He wants to do this. This is his avenue. If you don't have that, I'm sorry, you're off the table. And these coaches, there is nothing that gets something done faster than a bunch of recruits at these high-level schools that you got to get them say, well, you don't have that type of dance, so I'm not going. I'll get in my limo and go somewhere else.
So what you're saying is I'm been ahead of the curve the whole time, right?
That's exactly
It's
right.
about the brand now.
It's the brand. Kids are smart now, Vince.
So here's a question. If you're there's two questions. But I'm thinking that if you are a 4 or 5 star, and you've got an opportunity to go to, say, Alabama or UCF, would a kid be better off going to be a bigger fish in a small pond to be able to get that spotlight, to build that brand and to build that following, or go to Alabama? Because there's no guarantees. And what I love about Nick, say what you want, is what he does with the kids once he gets them. Mm-hmm. You've seen, a lot of these kids are in the, and here's the thing, transfer portal, the fact that these kids got a year waiver on their scholarships, I agree with you. I think the wagering, it's almost like the stock market now.
It's that's what it's going to turn into. I mean, you talk about projection and evaluation. We're not just talking about companies anymore. You're projecting and evaluating teams and programs, because really what they're turning into is organizations. And it all filters down from the NFL. And now all of a sudden you've got guys that are GMs of college teams. What do you think the director of player personnel is really now? That's a GM. Who started that really? Nick Saban in Alabama. But you bring that up. What has Nick Saban become? The middleman between your son and the NFL. Ooh. And if you can get into that lane and become
Nick Saban, the middleman.
The middleman is crazy. He is the middleman.
Dang.
That is what it is. And when I'm looking at this, Vince, and I look at the totality of it, this is something. And again, we've seen kids get offers as 13-year-olds. You remember the kid that USC offered, Lane Kiffin, was like 13.
What about Bronny James?
That's exactly right. But you look, it is going to start when these kids are 14 and 15 years old, and it is not going to end until they get done in the NFL. So when I'm looking at this in totality, you talk about the stock market. That is a great way to put it, because you are going to have to, if you're a coach or if you're a team that wants to compete, and you talk about UCF, what have you just added? There's a niche there. Maybe because what's going to happen is, and it may last for 1 year. It may take one kid saying, no LSU, well, UCF is offering this, and I can be the face of UCF, and then they're going to have to adjust, and they will. But what I think you're going to see is that if I'm a kid and I'm getting recruited, and you tell me that I can attach my brand to Alabama, or I can attach my brand to the SEC, that's free money. That's free eyes. I don't have to do anything.
No brainer.
I had Jason Belzer on the other day saying that a kid
great
that
sports
signs,
agent.
Yeah, unbelievable. A kid that signs with Alabama, a scholarship evaluation, all that stuff is worth about $250,000. That kid could ride the bench for 4 years, and the average player makes Alabama $6 million.
Well, you remember we talked about the players in March Madness, $1.5 million per player.
Staggering.
So my question too is this. And, we've heard it 100 years. We've been around it 100 years, 30 for 30, the Pony Excess at SMU, cash delivered in McDonald's bags and collection plates, and, this latest breaking news with Rush Propst. And I had a fascinating encounter with Rush Propst one time when he was coach at Hoover, which is now, I think, Spain Park. And they were the big MTV show 2-A-days. and clearly he's a gifted coach, but clearly, Hurricane Rush, wherever he goes, some kind of something follows.
Yeah.
And some serious accusations that he is leveled. And everybody's got an opinion about it right now. But do you think that NIL long term might, because there's two separate opinions. Sometimes they say, well, the Alabama's gonna now just get everybody. Well, they're already getting them anyway. But on the other side is, will NIL level the playing field? We don't know if kids are getting paid off or not. But then if there's legal ways for them to get compensated, I don't know if we know where all this is going yet.
I don't think we do, and I think just like anything, early there'll be a feeling out process. Some teams will do it better than other teams. I think it's a race for these teams that are underneath that tier that we've seen the elite teams on, finding a way early. Because, again, it's all cyclical. That's what this is. So when I look at it, all it takes, if you're at Texas A&M, all it takes – if you're a Mississippi State, it's just 1 year. That one good year of you were able to sneak in and grab a few guys, or you look at the group of five, a Georgia Southern, something like that, to have a huge year and go be that 8th seed in the playoff. Now, you're going to get wiped off the face of the earth probably by the number one team, but it's just going in there and being able to say, hey, we're dancing with the big boys a little bit. Come here. You're going to have some of the same eyes on you, and as a freshman, we're going to give you the ball, and you're going to be the guy, and you're going to be, now that we have NIL on billboards and posters and all that stuff, what I think you're going to see is there will be a leveling somewhat of the playing field. But just like anything, once they figure out what the market is, once they look at the analytics, because the analytics on this is going to be nuts.
Crazy.
That's where it's going to be crazy. Once they figure out the path, I think you'll see, just like anything, the guys at the top with all the resources will figure out a way to try and monopolize it. But with so many players at the table, and the cards getting divvied out, you can't count cards in this deal. So it's going to be fascinating.
So back to the Natty, and and I've got distinct opinions about this, but they say, all right, it's SEC fatigue or Dabo fatigue, but then I go, well, man up and go beat them.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, but if you and then I do think there's some innate bias on the committee. Because and they would never admit it, programming Cincinnati on won the Final Four above Ohio State. I mean, and I think the Ohio State thing, was a pretty extreme thing. But I think going to 8, I do agree with but Cincinnati, give them 2 or 3 more years. With that exposure.
Yes.
And we also don't understand, the academic recruiting, the exposure, the scholarships. I've said many, many times, I give these speeches in Tuscaloosa to these kids, and I say, raise your hand and where you're from if you're out of state, 60%. And then, to a kid, they'll go, why did you come? And I came for football.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
They all say, I want that college experience. I want to be in Bryant Denny. I want Dixieland Delight. I want the Eagle. I want the Earthquakes at Baton Rouge. I want the 12th man at Texas A&M. And obviously we're hearing now that maybe Texas goes to the Pac-12, Oklahoma goes to the SEC because the Big 12 still is the wobbly leg of the stool. I don't think, again, let's go back to the top. We could sit here all day and talk about the 10 seasons of college football.
Yeah.
And that's why we love it. That's why the fans love it. The sponsors love it. The Bill brand for life, early signing, national signing day. I had a kid come to me and say, can you produce my announcement video? Think about that.
Yeah.
I got a 17-year-old is going to sign, and friends and family said, can you do my announcement video? And so I talked to the kid, and he's like, hey, it's not necessarily what the university can do for my brand. Mm-hmm. It's what can my brand do for the university.
Oh, yeah. Well,
can you imagine
it's going to, and again, it's already been happening, and kids are starting to figure this out. Parents are starting to figure this out, that there is a lot more value in being a top-ranked running back in the country then hey, I get to go get my education paid for. And look, I think it's great. I think it
even if
should
you're
be
getting a
very-
few gift cards slipped to you.
yeah, exactly. Or like you said, it gives a whole new meaning to the dollar menu. Talking
Right,
about the
right,
McDonald's
right, yeah.
bags. But when I look at it, and look, I like meritocracy. I want the best teams to play. And listen, I also want to say that I am not saying you punish success. Right now, if you put 8 teams in the playoff, which it should be capped at 8, it'll probably still be Alabama and Clemson that play
I
in
agree.
the national championship.
I agree.
But what you're doing is what you just said. If I'm Cincinnati or I'm Auburn and I get in, Cincinnati being the 8th seed, you may get drilled by 40. But now I can go in that 4-star defensive lineman that may be from Ohio, may be close, and say, listen, we're sitting here looking around. I'm looking at Michigan and I'm looking at Michigan State, and they're not in the playoff. But I look at Cincinnati, and they're in the playoff. And what does that mean? That tape of you playing against Alabama and you have success from a scout's eyes is worth its weight.
You're
in
hearing
gold.
that all the
And
time.
what is that? What if I'm a freshman there and I'm not endorsed or I'm not sponsored, and I go out there as a defensive end and I have 3.5 sacks against Alabama, even though we lost by 40, somebody is calling me and saying, number
Right.
one, hey, the scouts' eyes are all over you, and then all of a sudden, here come the endorsements and the
Right.
It's all going to be a recruiting pitch, Vince.
Well, and also, I actually, I think you're going to see a massive course correction in the business of college athletics. I think, we've talked about it, and we'll continue to talk about it. The NCAA is getting denuded. There's a major case before the Supreme Court. There are major bills pending in Congress. These absolutely ridiculous buyouts. I mean, my alma mater paid Gus $21.5 million. I mean, other than the NFL and college sports, there's no other business where you get rewarded to fail. And then you've got, these allegations of Les Miles coming out 8 years ago, and he still gets $2 million.
Yeah.
So I continue to say this. The athletic directors are CEOs of 50, 100, 150 million, $200 million organizations, and they've all got to start acting like it. And I think that's going to be a tremendous course correction, and I think it's way overdue. And I've said it time and time and time and time again, because the athletes, and Trevor proved this, and Justin proved this when they were pushing the ACC and the Big Ten to play back in the fall. That they hey, wait a minute, we've got the power, we have the platform, we're the product.
Yeah.
And who knows where this could go? Like I said, I mean, so if you had a crystal ball, you're a former student athlete, you're a former coach. I mean, you're in that generation. I mean, you got to be excited for the student athletes in all the sports, not just football.
Yeah, well, and again, I'm excited for them because I know a lot of them come from nothing. And you look at guys, and I call it the Superman syndrome. Everybody's depending on me. Everybody back home, I'm the one with the size. I'm the one with the talent. I have got to provide. You got guys that are 16, 17, 18 years old that are looked at like they're 30, 35-year-old men because everybody back home is banking on them.
That's a lot of pressure.
That's more pressure. It's almost like being a father. It's almost like being a dad that got fired 2 weeks before Christmas, and you're wondering how you're going to put presents under the tree for the kids. And I'm excited for the players because it is a service they're offering. How can I wear this beautiful gray hoodie that you can find at thejboyshow.com and have my name on it, image and likeness, your name, and say, no, you know what? I don't want to get paid for it. Man, heck no. Anytime my stuff pops up, I want to be paid for it. I'm not a guy that can run a 4.4. I'm not a guy that can have a 40-inch vertical and catch a ball over an NFL's DB's head. So they offer a service, because the last time I checked, when you offer a service that people want, you should get paid for it. It should be distributed the way that you provide. And you talk about the buyouts. It's ridiculous. And look, I'm a former coach, all right? And there's a saying in the NFL, I just got to make it to my second contract, right? Well, there's a new saying in coaching, well, I just got to make it to my first buyout. There shouldn't be these huge buyouts.
It's awful.
But how can you have incentives and buyouts? Like, it's the
It's
total
incongruent.
win-win.
It's incongruent.
It doesn't make sense. That business
I know.
model does not make sense to me.
So I want to wrap this up because I think you hit on a thing. What I'm excited about for all these student athletes is that, let's put the Trevors to the side for a moment. So I grew up in Chatham, Alabama, population 800. Mm-hmm. If a kid from Leroy High makes the women's softball team at Auburn, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
odds are her parents come from a, normal socioeconomic environment. Odds are they have sacrificed many years and many thousands of dollars supporting that kid through her softball career. If that kid gets even $5,000 to $10,000 a year from Leroy, Alabama businesses,
Life-changing.
it's life-changing for that family. And those are the stories I want to continue to get out and tell, because all the powers that be just continue to focus on the things that's in their self-interest. Yeah. And we lost in all of this, and I've been around student-athletes literally 40 years. Be 41 this fall when I stepped on the campus of Auburn University, and it is some of the greatest, most devoted kids. And I go down to a lot of college campuses when I'm speaking, and I'll drift over to the athletic department, and those kids are in there on the balance beams and the batting cages, and I just really think it's going to be a special time for these great student athletes. But Jake, tremendous discussion. We're going to continue to talk about the 10 seasons of college football. We're going to continue to unpack these issues. We're going to continue to probe and prod these discussions out there. So Jake Crane, J-Boy Show, hottest show on the internet. I'm Vince Thompson. He's my partner in crime. Don't forget Bill Brand New. We're talking about personal branding now more than ever. It's going to be important for everybody out there. So I'm Vince Thompson, founder, chairman, CEO of Melt, and that's it for this week's Meltdown.
You've just listened to The Meltdown. Remember to follow us on Twitter and Instagram @MeltATL, and follow Vince @VinnyInc, and on LinkedIn as Vince Thompson.